No, I don't either. So I'm going to have to. Okay, so I'm going to ask the people that are out there watching. Are you hearing me yet? Yeah, they're saying yes. So I think that worked. All right. All right. Thanks. Um, well, let me hang on here for a second. So I'm just asking everybody out there, can you hear the music right now? They say, I can hear you, thank you. Can you hear the music, everybody? No, no music. No sound for me either. No, no, no music. So, uh, go to advanced settings and it's audio output capture or yeah, audio output capture, I'm sure is what I want. Make it monitor off. All right. So can okay. So can everybody hear music? And can you hear me? Can you hear the music and me? Can everybody hear the music and me? Yes, both. Yay, we're done. Thank you. All right. Thanks. All right. So it looks like we're back. Okay. That was Shay on the phone helping me to solve this big problem. So I think we're good now, right? You can all hear me. I just shut the music off. We're good. So I'm going to begin this once again and start with the music so that the recording here works. Here we go. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for your patience. All right, crazy audio difficulty, but it is, uh, there's probably some people who aren't even here because it's daylight savings time, and we usually lose a few people because, as far as they're concerned, it's not 12:39, it's 11:39. So usually lose a handful of people because of that. you know, um, I think there was some famous American Indian chief who said only the white man can think that he can cut a foot off the bottom of his blanket and attach it to the top and think that the blanket is a foot longer, you know. Um, so, today, where we start once again, I have to put on my traveling hat. So that's what this was all about. My traveling hat and um, my walking stick, and my backpack and my walking stick and my traveling hat. And also, one of the more important parts of that is the World Travel Journal, so that we're about to go on a bit of a trip here. And don't forget the dog. When I was in art school in the 60s, and we had a photography class, and we were taking photographs of all the regular stuff, still lives and home assignments, to take pictures of things and bring them back for a grade. And one day the professor told everybody, we want you all to come out into the back lot of the school. So the school is in the middle of Boston, and there's a big chain link fence that goes around with a fairly large back lot. But the back lot is not something that's developed. It's just grass and weeds and a big fence. And he takes us all over to a corner where the fence comes together, off in the corner, which is just like nothing there. There's nameless weeds and some trash and, a chain link fence and the city beyond. And he wants us to set up our cameras. He's going, an artist is the eyes of the world. That is your job, to see what's special about anything and everything that other people take for granted. That's your job. Your job as an artist, to see the most mind-blowing and fascinating stuff that there is in reality that other people just walk past and don't see. Your job is to paint that, to photograph that, to do something with that, and to point it out to people so that something changes in their lives. And so your assignment today is to take this corner, this nameless corner where the fences come together, where there's weeds and trash, and I want you to photograph that. I want you to find the interesting stuff and the artistic stuff and make amazing photographs out of this zone. And we're all sort of standing around scratching our heads, But you would have your mind blown to see what this group of artists turned that nameless nothing into something that was really incredibly amazing. I mean, some guys are down there with macro lenses and in the dirt and the little plants, and some little nameless weed down there has got this beautiful little leaf that comes out, and if you get the angle just right, the sun is shining through it and you see all the little veins and the textures, and all in a little junk pile in a corner of a fence. Down among all those weeds are the little creatures that live down there in some alternate world, with little pathways that to them are footpaths through the jungle. We have no, idea of their existence. They have no idea of ours. Who needs to go to another planet, for God's sake, Many of the experiences that I had in art school like that changed my perception of the world permanently. And for me, I recognized this was part of my journey through life's esoteric school that is everywhere. And in everything you do, all you have to do is start looking. It's all laying at your feet. The tools are all around you. The extraordinary is in everything that appears to be ordinary. Take a second look. Look closer. So, when I'm in my, in inevitable task that I have set for myself of these live streams. What am I going to do for this next live stream? And when that question comes up, I don't have to really do anything. All I have to do is ask the question. And the next thing I know, the universe is like laying things at me that the answer always comes from somewhere. I don't really have to struggle too hard for it. The days that I do struggle really hard for it and I don't have a clue, and finally I sort of give up, then it comes. You know, it's a life lesson of its own. That's profound. And because I've set this task up for myself, it's a regular journey into looking into the nooks and crannies of the universe to find the amazing, which in itself is a gloriously wonderful thing for anyone to do. I suggest everybody pretend that you're the one putting on the live stream and that you have to come up with some topic and you flesh it out, whether you show it to anybody or not. This is a hugely powerful method of connecting with your universe. You know, and it makes it more potentized because I've got an audience I have to entertain, right, with cosmic data. If you ever want to really learn something, teach it. Yeah, very powerful. So I had this dream. This is where it usually happens for me. A dream will wake me up because it's an answer to a question or it's new information dropping in from someplace else. And this happens to me routinely. So I actually do have one of these by the side of my bed, filled with stuff, that I have to write down. Oh my God, that's not a dream. That's information. I got to write this down. So, so for this, it's in the morning, hovering around the time when the alarm is about to go off. And my brain is in the midst of this. What am I going to do for the live stream? And the answer is my big toe. That's what does that even mean? What, my big toe? What are you talking about? And superimposed on top of that is my memory of that time with the chain link fence and the camera. That the live stream should be about the idea that you could pick anything, the most sort of ordinary, out of the way, uncosmic thing that you could think of, and penetrate into that and find the cosmic there. And that's the idea of the fractal hologram of the universe, that all of the most powerful, mind-blowing, sacred geometries and mathematics and harmonics and overtones and all the rest of it that the universe is reflected in all of the tiniest little pieces everywhere. The whole is reflected in the most tiny pieces you can pick up and imagine. So I took it on. I thought, okay, let's do that. Let's go online and let's. First of all, what do I know about the big toe? I know a lot about the big toe because I know all the anatomy and the physiology and the blood vessels and the nerve supplies and all of that stuff about the big toe. That's what came up to mind first. The homunculus of the big toe and the sensory cortex up here, right? That the big toe, the homunculus shows which areas of the sensory cortex get the lion's share of information because they're most important for survival. So the homunculus is a body that is drawn to illustrate which parts get more sensory information than others. So there's a big face, big lips, and a big tongue, and big fingers, and a big toe. And other areas are thin and small because you don't have a lot of nerve endings there. It's unimportant, like a spot in the middle of your back. Unimportant, small. That's what came to mind for me. So I go online and I do a Google search, the human big toe. And there you go. I mean, as soon as I did that, it was like you might as well put on your hat and grab your walking stick because this is a journey I was not expecting. It's just oh my God, you know. So with with that said, you know, we're off and running with my big toe, the cosmic nature of my big toe and yours. And I would suspect that at some point in this broadcast, you're going to be inspired to take your shoes and socks off and have a look at your own big toe because there's a lot there. Um, it's the sort of, you know, there was a tale of a self important king who called all of his smartest ministers to him uh, to answer the question of how is it possible that someone so lofty and so important could have something so unimportant as a foot touching the ground? Because the ground is an unholy place, and this person is so aggrandized that it is against sensibilities to have his foot touching the ground, of all things. So he wanted an answer to this mystery. And of course, nobody had a good answer, so they all got beheaded, you know. Yeah, and the grounding of your foot on the earth is the descent of pure spirit as idea into grounded physicality that we all as spirit beings have chosen on purpose to be birthed here from the realm of spirit and pure consciousness. That we opted out and we bought that ticket and we came down and populated a body so we could have this experience, because this is the biggest game in town, in the universe town. This is it. This is the biggest game you can be part of. And it's touching and smelling and tasting and eating and walking and exploring in this unimaginable three-dimensional, hyperdimensional game that we're in, where you have the possibility of modulating the game by your own consciousness, that you can change this game. This game is a projection of your soul body. And you're linked with other people in a collective unconscious mind field, universally large, that is manufacturing this reality moment by consensus vote. The core and central idea of why we're doing these broadcasts, that the idea of the global mind link to connect that group mind together, to give it the power that it doesn't know how to use, the power to change reality itself in the quantum field. That's what we're up to. And every part and particle of this reality is special and magnificent and mind-blowing. And any of those particles, any of those things that you take for granted, like your big toe, becomes the doorway to all the secrets of the universe. Even the most innocuous thing that you can choose on purpose as a test of the concept of the fractal holographic geometry of reality, everything reflected in miniature, brings us to this point of my big toe. The medical name for the big toe is called the hallux. This big toe here has evolved. It's an evolved structure that's unique. It's played a critical role in the development of human movement, locomotion, posture, cultural significance. you know, often it's overlooked. This anatomical feature distinguishes Homo sapiens from our primitive ancestors and has been central to human biomechanics, anthropology, esoteric traditions. I mean, really mind-boggling what I started coming up with as soon as I started digging down a little bit. So the structure of the big toe here, you can see all of your toes have got these three joints. The distal, which means furthest away, phalanx, which is that little bone right there, and then there's the middle phalanx, this little second bone, and then there's the third bone called the proximal phalanx. Proximal means closest to us, and distal means furthest away from us. So we've got these three little joints, and three little joints, and three little joints, and three little joints, except the big toe only has two. Two joints. Two joints for exceptional stability. So we've only got a distal and a proximal joint on the big toe. This bone here is in the foot proper, like this part of your foot right here. So the phalanges out here and the metatarsal, this one right here. And then there's all these complicated bones in the foot that form the arch, like a Roman arch, just like a Roman arch, where you have these bones, these stones stacked up that are sort of a slight wedge shape. And then there's a keystone that goes into the top that holds the arch together. And that keystone, and you take that idea of the arch and you turn it into 3D and make it a dome. And so there's a complicated shape for that stone at the top, and what shape it is to fit into a dome and hold the dome together. And that essentially is the arch of your foot. That's what that looks like. And the central bone at the top is called the cuboid bone, and it's a very specific shape that holds the arch together. As a doctor, I dealt with that. I mean, a fallen arch is that the cuboid slips and the arch collapses. And when the arch collapses, the foot turns in and starts pinching the ankle and up to the knee, and all kinds of problems start to happen. You start to get bunions, your foot spreads out, it's not fitting in your shoe anymore. And then when the arch like collapses down, the calcaneus, this bone at your heel, and these bones where the metatarsals and the phalanges meet, this starts to spread, and as it spreads, it starts to pull on the plantar fascia, which is tough fibroelastic tissue that holds this together. It starts tugging on it, and you get plantar fasciitis, inflammation in the fascia, and it begins to become impossible to walk. And so as a chiropractor, I would adjust all these bones back into their proper position so the arch was corrected again, and then make a mold of your foot where you'd have to step into this special foam and make a mold of the corrected foot and make an insert that would fit inside your shoe to hold the arch up long enough for all the ligaments and tendons that got stretched out when it was abnormal to heal and to tighten back up again, so you didn't need the arch support. Some people were messed up to a point where they just had to wear an arch support for the rest of their lives. But remember the idea that this big toe has got this flexor hallucis longus tendon, a special, thicker tendon than all the other. So here's all these other ones. This one here, this illustration isn't really correct because this tendon is twice as thick, at least, than all these other ones. And it comes right up into this muscle group that comes up with the anterior tibialis and extensor digitorum and all of these. This one right here goes to the toes, but this one and this one go to the big toe. More tendons, more muscles that go to the big toe. And we'll see why. Way back in the beginning, where unlike our sort of primitive relatives, prehistoric relatives, who all possessed opposable big toes suited for grasping, sort of like your hand, right? The gorilla foot looks like sort of like this with an opposable thumb for grasping because you're living in trees and you're hanging from trees. You're not sort of walking on the ground. So these the opposing big toe of our ancient ancestors, those opposable big toes were suited for grasping tree branches, and human evolution favored a forward-facing, non-opposable big toe, the hallux. This adaptation was a key milestone in all of human evolution because evolution depended on what happened with the big toe. That the big toe changing from being opposable like a thumb to a forward-facing, super stabilized, very muscular and powerful with special tendons toe now made it possible for people to stand up on their 2 feet and walk forward and run and reduce all the energy expenditure that would normally happen by having to grasp and leave your hands free for tool use and development and cultural development. The whole thing of all of human civilization that we experience right now is because of the development of the big toe. From a grasping to a straight, powerful force that could push the foot off and face forward and give your hands to be free. So you could make tools and do things with ease, right? All of civilization spun from that one thing, the big toe. And the fossil evidence, such as, this is going to be a tough one, the Australopithecus africanus footprint, the one footprint in anthropology that showed the first incidents of that evolutionary change of the big toe, from a grasping toe to a forward-facing stabilized toe, and bipedal locomotion, walking on 2 feet. The very first incidence of that was this footprint of the famous Lucy, by the way. The first incidents of coming out of the trees and walking on the ground and creating an entire new way of being able to survive on the ground, because up to that point, survival all was you in the trees and jumping between trees to save yourself from ground-based animals. As soon as you're down on the ground, it's a different ballgame. You got to figure out a whole new way to survive, and a whole new way to hunt, and a whole new way to be with other people. It's very unimaginably gigantic shift in evolution, all because of the big toe and what happened to it. You know, Lucy, the ultimate mother of all civilization. It was her footprint they found. A female in the first step towards the evolutionary changes that we now experience as human beings. All began here. And this footprint, the Latoli footprint, dating back 3.6 million years, is the beginning of all of it. That footprint and the big toe facing forward, showing that Our ancient ancestors had finally come down to the trees and had come down onto land for long enough for an evolutionary change to actually take place in a few generations, from an opposing to a foot, like we know it, like what is attached to the bottom of your leg, right down there, your toes, those guys. All comes back to this Lucy. Mind-blowing. Like, wow. And here's the evolutionary tree of all of our different ancestors that branched off here and there, finally coming up to this area with orangutans and gibbons and gorillas and chimpanzees, that all of them have this opposing thumb, like a hand on your foot, except for us. We're the only ones, right up the center, different significantly than all of our ancestors before, because this big toe went straight. Interesting. Mind-blowing. Amazing. So, you take a look at your 2 feet down there, touching the ground. And if you take a good look at them, one is a male foot and one is a female foot. One is softer and more feminine, and one is more angular and more masculine. One is larger, one is smaller. One is more rugged looking, one is more feminine looking, soft. It's the same thing with everything. It's the same thing with your hands. One's a male hand, one's a female hand. Same with the 2 sides of your face. One is a male face, one is a female face. Next time, take a look at yourself in the mirror. Cover one side of your face over. Another cool one is to take a picture of your face and in Photoshop, cut it in half and flip it over, mirrorize, so that you get your face with 2 right sides and your face with 2 left sides. Now you can really see it. You can see a male face and a female face, and a young face and an old face. It's all there. The phases of walking, which is the core essential shift that took place in evolution of humanity. Heel first, roll across the foot, leg forward, body weight forward, onto the foot pad and the toe, the big toe. Push off with the big toe. That's the reason why the toe's got all these extra muscles and why it's straight and only has 2 joints and is super solidified and has all these special tendons that latch into the Achilles tendon and the contraction of the gastrocnemius muscle up here, calf muscle. All of these mechanisms are coming to bear in order for the big toe to push off. The whole thing depends on this mechanism of the big toe and the Achilles tendon and the springiness of this arch in this rolling motion across and pushing off with the big toe. So once again, here we are at the pinnacle of evolution, all of it based on the big toe and what happened to it. How it got super stabilized with extra muscles and extra tendons and extra new architecture of the foot with the, Achilles tendon and the roll and the plantar fascia, all of that. Which brings me back to one of my favorite quotes, Bilbo Baggins, "Dangerous business, Frodo, going out of your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to." Absolutely true. So, of course, we're going to have to go all the way back to, Egyptian mythology with the god Ptah. The big toe is symbolized by stability and divine connection, a divine connection with the universe where you touch it physically with your feet. Your feet is how you touch the universe. Unless you get down on your hands and knees and touch it with your hands, most of us, our connection with the universe is through our feet. Our feet ground us into the universe. It's us standing, it's us walking, it's us moving about. You know, it's so in the depictions of this god Ptah, is always shown standing firmly, emphasizing balance and the cosmic order, and special attention was always paid to the foot touching the ground. His 2 feet touching the ground was symbolizing the stability and the divine connection. Fascinating, sort of. Really? In Hindu mythology and Buddhist thought, the big toe, the hallux, plays a role in meditation and yogic postures, particularly in grounding energy through lotus pose. Padmasana is what that's called. And something else called the Mula Bandha, the root lock. So here we've got, you can see that when you fold your legs up this way, the foot is supposed to lay on the thigh and the big toe curls outwards. Now you're contracting the opposite end tendons here, and the tibialis anterior muscle that pulls this big toe up against your thigh on both sides as part of how you stabilize this posture and open up the bottom 2 chakras, to open up the energy so it can flow. The big toe is a big part of that. You can sort of see this person doing it here. But when you're really awakening these chakras and doing the pranayama, breathing and contraction of these special muscles, this foot and this toe do a powerful contraction up against the thigh here. And that's part of how this whole thing works. Big toe is a prominent piece of this puzzle. In the Mula Bandha, or awakening the channels, there's this thing that's called the root lock, where you engage the perineum muscles, the muscles down between your legs, and you contract those muscles in a very special way, and it opens up the first chakra, and the feet and the big toe have to be curled back and pressing hard against your thigh as part of this whole mechanism of sort of locking the root. When you lock the root, it opens up the base chakra, and these muscle contractions that you're doing very specifically with a certain phase of respiration opens the channel so that the energy can start to flow up the chakras and flow up the spine. Of course, we're going to go back to the ancient Greece, because we always end up there. Statues of the gods and the heroes were often, always sort of strong, but they always had something special with their feet as well. The grounded fascination of the feet, and the big toe in particular, was always sculpted in a way to show extra superpowering grounding of the divine. Symbols of power, divine power. Monstrous statues in marble. Go check out the pictures of Michelangelo's David, by the way. His feet look very spectacular and very powerful, how his big toe looks. Greek mythology, we've got Mercury, who is the king of the concept of the big toe, because he's the one that was the messenger of the gods and the one who had lightning feet, symbolized by wings on his Achilles tendon, right? Yeah. And the Achilles tendon was his weak point, remember? But it's pushing off with the toe through the special mechanism into the heel, up through the Achilles tendon and the gastrocnemius muscle. And the contraction of this that allows the stability of the toe to push off. So this whole thing was a symbolism of that, of this whole idea of the foot being the evolution of the gods. And so if you have injury or a problem with the Achilles tendon, then you can't walk right because this mechanism is destroyed and the big toe has no power. It needs this entire mechanism to move. And then we've got, all kinds of things like, foot reflexology and all of the symbolism that goes on into the foot, where the big toe has got the brain. The brain is, and the pituitary gland and the pineal gland and the autonomic nervous system are all represented in the toe when you do reflexology treatments. And then the brain stem is here, coming down. So once again, the big toe takes the lion's share of the master control centers of the entire system, controlling all the other stuff down below, the organs and the glands and the biochemistry and all the other stuff that we've talked about in the past, that the autonomic nervous system and the hypothalamus and the pituitary and the pineal gland are the key elements that control the entire system, all of it represented miniature in the big toe. Here we can see that the pituitary gland and the pineal gland and the hypothalamus, where the autonomic nervous system is related, all of them represented in the big toe, the master control center that tells things what to do. This is the neck. Here's the thyroid. Brainstem is extending down and through here. Working on these areas therapeutically has a direct influence through, micro fractal reflectivity in the body to cause something to happen in the autonomic nervous system or in the pituitary gland or in the pineal gland. You can affect their function by rubbing on these points, by influencing these points with a laser beam or a sound wave or an electromagnetic frequency or physical pressure. In Ayurveda, the key energy meridians run through the bottom of the foot and particularly into the big toe. And it's all got to do, once again, with stability and grounding. We also have, in Chinese acupuncture, every meridian ends on a finger and a toe. In Qigong as well, the big toe is considered a key point for energy circulation and grounding in the body. It serves as both a conduit for Qi, the life force energy, and an essential anchor that connects the body's internal energy systems to the Earth's energy field. This connection allows practitioners to stabilize their physical body and while maintaining access to higher spiritual energies. Effectively, the big toe and the pads at the bottom of the foot here, connecting to the earth, bridges the material and the spiritual realms. It's where I touch down and touch the universe physically. The fact that human beings have put shoes on and have separated this connection means that as a civilization, as a species, we've removed our grounding with massive consequences of that. Because with no grounding into the universe, ideas start to spin out by themselves without a grounded influence to anchor them. And those ideas start to create odd and weird, non-natural waveforms that form all kinds of weird behaviors and weird attitudes in human beings because they're disconnected from their indigenous self and from the indigenous nature of your connection with all life in the universe, because you're not touching it anymore. You're not grounded to it anymore. You're out of touch completely with it now. So what's arisen from that is this whole thing of grounding, which is profound. Taking your shoes and your socks off and going outside every day to make sure that you reconnect. You reconnect and ground yourself out on the planet, which is a big ball of rock floating in the middle of nowhere in the universe. But it's connected. You touch your feet to the ground, you ground yourself not only into the planet, but with all life on the planet and in all life in the universe. It's a fractal hologram once again. The importance of reconnecting and touching the universe, grounding yourself out into the universe with your feet. It's important. In acupuncture, there is a special point called kidney number 1, K1, the K1 point, the Yung Quan point. And you can find it on your own foot. It's where this big foot pad and the big foot pad for the big toe come together and create a point. It's on your body. This would be where your rib cage comes together with the xyloid process, which is a little tiny bone that hangs down right here. So your rib cage comes like this, and there's a little teeny tiny bone that's there, and you can touch that bone. But right there is where the diaphragm attaches. And the diaphragm attaches and sort of cuts you in half with this big muscle. And that muscle expands and contracts, and that's how we breathe. And breathing is deeply associated with chi energy in the body, the life force, the raw life force. And that's partly what this is a holographic connection with, the K1 point. And the energy from the kidney meridian runs straight at the foot and is deeply involved with the big toe. It's called the root point, the root grounded point, one of the most critical grounding points of Qigong and all of Taoist sort of alchemy. The big toe plays a critical role in guiding energy towards this point. That me touching my foot to the ground and pushing off with the big toe pulls energy straight through this point up to the Achilles tendon, and it activates all these meridians that come down and go through the big toe. Big toe has more than its share of meridians that go through it. All the fingers in your body, there are these things called the well points, where every meridian in the body ends on a finger and a toe, except the big toe has 3 meridians that run through it because it's so special. It's special in its energy. It's special in its evolutionary ability to change us from trees to land, frees our hands, creates the whole flowering of all of the civilizations we currently experience, and frees our spirit in the pursuit of inner perfection. So there is this sort of thing if you sort of lack the grounding that happens from rooting yourself into touching the universe, in particular where the big toe takes a big share of that, the spiritual experiences are going to be ungrounded. And the ungrounded nature of a whole species that doesn't ground itself is what we witness now in our own civilization, in our own species, how far it's gone astray. There's a toe-focused Qigong exercise called the root, the cosmic root connection, the Shen, the spirit, into the body, allowing for a more stable and embodied spiritual practice, a grounded spiritual maturity, so to speak, that arises from that. Here is that K1 point on the kidney meridian. It's the entry point for Qi going into the meridian. K number 1, the first point. And the first point of each meridian is called the entry point, and the last point of each meridian is called the exit point. But you can see that this meridian starts in the center of that zone, wraps around and wraps around the arch of the foot and comes up in this swirling pattern around the Achilles tendon. So this whole mechanism of the strengthened toe and the fascia that this is running right through and the Achilles tendon is all part of this mechanism that runs right through the gastrocnemius. It's this whole mechanism of how the Qi is flowing through this like circular pattern coming up. You can also see that the liver meridian starts on the big toe, runs up through each of the bones of the foot, up to the ankle, comes around. It's also involved in these anterior tibialis muscles and the peroneus muscles, runs right through all of those points. And the 5 elements chart, here's the kidney meridian, and here's the liver and the lung and the spleen. You'll see that all of these are tied together, as we sort of move forward. This whole thing with the meridians and how the Qi flows, it's like a huge sort of mind-blowing, in the liver meridian, this one over here, where it starts on the toe, according to traditional Chinese medicine, the liver meridian starts at the big toe and runs up through the body, influencing blood circulation, emotional balance, spiritual vision. Liver is closely tied to wood energy. So you can see that the liver meridian is a wood meridian. Liver and gallbladder are wood. Kidney bladder is water. Each one of these has one of the 5 elements: earth, fire. So, this wood energy in the 5 element theory symbolizes growth and direction and decision making, all aspects of personal will and movement. Personal will and the toe, big toe, have always been associated together. Blocked or stagnant Qi in the big toe can lead to emotional imbalances such as irritability, indecisiveness, frustration, poor circulation. This is just from Chinese medicine. The spleen meridian, here's another one that starts at the big toe. Remember I said there's 3 that goes to the big toe, and no other appendage has that. But the spleen meridian also sort of runs up through all the bones of the foot, straight up through the ankle, straight up through those muscles that are anterior tibialis. Spleen is a dual organ, and the meridian is a dual meridian. the spleen meridian also has a pancreas, and the pancreas is a dual organ, and the spleen is a dual organ. So the spleen, when it's in its passive phase, recycles old red blood cells. So the red blood cells have a lifespan of about 120 days, and when they enter into the spleen, they enter into this unimaginable maze of blood vessels that get smaller and smaller and smaller inside this network of the spleen, which is infused with a unimaginable accumulation of blood vessels that entangle together and form these mazes and get smaller and smaller and smaller. Pretty soon, the blood vessel is so small that each red blood cell has to squeeze itself through. It has to change from a round shape to an elongated shape to squeeze through these blood vessels. And if the red blood cell is over 120 years old, then the membrane is too fragile to handle that friction, and it ruptures, and all the contents, the heme and the hemoglobin and all that kind of stuff, spill out and get absorbed into the spleen and recycled. And all that stuff gets sent back to the bone marrow to manufacture new red blood cells. What a beautiful system this is, right? That's spleen in the passive phase. Spleen in the active phase is the largest lymph node in your body. It's part of your immune system. And the other organ, because the spleen meridian has got two organs, and each of those organs is double organ. So the pancreas has got the head and the tail of the pancreas, and one is the insulin. The head of the pancreas produces insulin, and that manages your blood sugar, and the tail manufactures digestive enzymes, and is part of your immune system, and it has a duct that comes down into the sigmoid colon. I'm sorry, the upper part of the small intestine, called the sort of the duodenum. It comes around. It's this shape, and it's got the certain enzymes that are produced inside of there, and it's got the pancreas with the duct coming into that zone. It's got the liver with the gallbladder with the duct that comes down, so it's adding bile, it's adding digestive enzymes from the pancreas, and it's creating digestive enzymes in that zone before it gets to the small intestine proper, which has more digestive enzymes, and that's where all the critters are down there, the biome, that have different DNA, foreign agents in a symbiotic relationship with our bodies that help us digest our food. Starts at the toe, another entry point. The lung meridian, let me go back up to here. So here we've got the liver and the spleen and the kidney, and the lung is involved in that because of respiration and the fire that burns. The lung is always traditionally connected with these, but the interesting thing about the lung is that it does not go to the big toe. It goes to the big finger. It goes to the representative in the hand of the big toe, and it's the end point, not the entry. All of it tied up together as a sort of another example of a fractal hologram. And all of these things are tied together in something called the microcosmic orbit, this Qigong practice of moving energy through the system for health and enlightenment. The sort of advanced Taoist energy work. Qi is circulated through a loop called the microcosmic orbit, which runs along the body's governing vessel and conception vessels. So in acupuncture, you've got the 12 meridians proper, which are paired on either side of the body. The liver and the lung and the kidney and the spleen and the heart meridian, the liver meridian, all of those have got a right one and a left one. Even though you may only have one liver on one side, you've got two liver meridians on either side because it's a fractal hologram. And every single one of those 12 meridians on either side ends on a finger or a toe, except the big toe, which has 3, because it's extra special, 3 times more special. And all of those points are entry points where the toe touches the ground and the chi energy comes from the universe through the earth up into your body and charges the whole system when you have no shoes on, when you're touching the ground with your feet and you're connected and grounded and you're exchanging a free flow of energy with the universe. So in the ancient practices, Qigong and Tai Chi and these energy moving mechanisms of moving the chi energy around in very specific ways of moving have got very specific things that are happening with your feet, and particularly with your big toe, and how you're touching the ground and moving the ground and pulling that energy up through the toe and the feet into and then being able to use that, manipulate that chi energy around. That's the Qigong idea and the Tai Chi idea and the Kung Fu idea. Martial arts all are in moving this energy around. For me, it was Aikido. I did my stint with Tai Chi and some Kung Fu, but Aikido was the big one to learning. Aikido. Ki-do. School of Ki. How do you learn to manage Ki, find Ki in a place in 1 inch down from your belly button, 1 inch down, and 2 inches straight in is your magnetic center, is the connect point where you connect to universal energy. And it's a connect point that all the meridians go deep and run through that spot. You can find that spot. That's what you're learning. How do I find this spot? I can find that spot. I can feel that spot. I can hold that spot. And then I can use that connection, the nexus of energy of Ki that's coming up through my feet. And I'm holding it. And now I'm going to manipulate it. And I'm going to move it around and learn how to use it. And in Aikido, there are no offensive moves. There's no punches, there's no kicks. I am learning how to manage the sphere around me of my chi field, and it's called a ki field, same stuff. And then you have one around you, and if you're an attacker and you come to me, once our ki fields intermingle, I'm the one who's learned how to use it, to manipulate it, to move it around. So I'm going to synchronize up with your ki field, and I'm going to move your ki energy field around and push it off this way, just like, you know, what George Lucas did with the Force. I'm going to take your momentum and I'm going to move that momentum and I'm going to throw you across the room and I'll never touch you. I will dance into your field and meld with your field, and I'll manipulate your field and move it somewhere, and you will go flying. And I will continue to do that until you've hit so many walls and the ground so many times that you're beat up and bruised and I never touched you, until finally either you're unconscious or you run away. My whole thing is to passively act and move. No aggressive moves. Very powerful stuff. It's how I learned this part. And then as a holistic practitioner in practice, this idea that there are these 12 meridians that circulate, you know, there's actually one meridian. And it moves through your whole body in a 24-hour cycle. And each meridian is connected head to toe to each other. One meridian comes down to the bottom of this finger, and the other one comes up the finger and back down the next finger and up the next finger and back down the next finger. Is this circulation of one unbroken channel of chi energy flow throughout your body, up and down your legs and arms and body and head. And human beings have split it up into 12 segments of 2 hours each in a 24-hour cycle. Each of those meridians has a high tide for 2 hours and a low tide for 2 hours as it moves through the system. So for convenience, human beings have split them off into 2-hour segments and put names on those. But there aren't 12 meridians. There's one, and there's 12 phases of activation of organs and glands and this and that. There are also 8 extra meridians aside from those 12 that are all connected together. And these 8 meridians are not connected into that mix on the surface like all the other ones are. These are deep connections, way deep inside the body. And those 8 meridians, like there's one called the belt meridian that runs around your waist. But the 2 most important meridians of all the meridians in the entire system is the conception vessel and the governing vessel. And the conception vessel starts at your chin, and it runs down your front and between your legs, right in the center of the perineum, halfway between the anus and your sex organs. This point, the entry point, is here. And the exit point is up here. And each one of these 2 is what's called an alarm point, and every meridian has an alarm point, the master test point to see if that meridian's got a problem. The governing vessel starts at the tip of your tailbone and runs up all the vertebrae in your spine and your neck and the midline cranial bones all the way around across the top of your head and down underneath your lip here. So the circulation of these 2 meridians, they run together in a loop. And that's what they're referring to by the microcosmic orbit. You are intentionally running the chi energy through this orbital loop where you start it at the tip of your tailbone and you run it up your spine and across your head and down here underneath your lip. And the next one starts here and runs down the front, down between your legs at that perineum point, right here between your legs. And with that system, there are 2 spark gaps in this circulation of electromagnetic energy. Chi energy is electromagnetic. You can measure it. You can influence it with electromagnetic fields. For me, I was doing it with magnets, taping a certain strength of magnet on the point instead of a needle. It's like a trickle charge. Positive energy pushes in. Negative energy pulls out. So I'm extruding energy into the point by taping a little magnet of a certain strength on the point. You wear it all week, and it's slowly influencing and holding that point. But the 2 spark gaps is the governing vessel comes around and ends here, and the conception vessel starts here. There's the gap. There's the spark gap. And down below, the other spark gap is between the tailbone and the perineum, between the governing vessel begin point and the conception vessel point. The anus is the spark gap. And the anus is the other end of the tube of this mouth, right? Your mouth goes down your swallow tube and wiggles around through your small intestine and your large intestine and comes out the other end as the anus. It's a big tube with one end here and the other end there, and those are the 2 spark gaps of the conception governing vessel system. And you will see when in other cultures like yogis doing meditation and the full lotus position thing that I talked about, where the big toe is an important component of stabilizing that system so that my respiration and my spine straight unlocks all of these energies that I can move. And what am I going to do? In order to do this circulation thing and moving energy up through the chakras in yoga, you're, according to the Sutras of Patanjali, 4,000-year-old text in Sanskrit, I'm going to squeeze the muscles in the perineum, which closes the anus and closes the spark gap. And I'm going to touch the tongue to the roof of my mouth and close this spark gap. I've closed both spark gaps, and I have now got that circulation that can start speeding up and moving and moving and moving and has no spark gap. Those spark gaps are closed, and the system is now open to circulate and circulate, circulate. The ancient yogis from India knew that. The Taoists knew that. The Qigong masters knew that. They all used the same mechanism, just call it different stuff. So this idea of the microcosmic orbit of pushing energy through here, at a key point right here is where the kidney meridian that attaches to the big toe comes in and links this out into the legs, out into the big toe, where your feet are supposed to be bare, touching the earth, so that you're grounded and the earth energy is now coming through the entry point at K1 and manifesting and connecting to the chi energy here, so that you've got a connection with universal energy to drive the system. It's not just energy coming from you. Your big toe and the K1 point grounded into the ground, you're touching the universe, and you are now grounded into a universal energy field that you're channeling up into the microcosmic orbit, and you're running the system for enlightenment and healing and all the other good stuff that we all want, all the esoteric secrets that most people don't know about. It's all there. So here we have the K1 point at the bottom, activating the energy coming up through the legs, linking it right here at the conception vessel 1 point, that one right there. All of this links together into the circulation that moves around up the spine, down the front, up the spine, down the front, and down the foot and up the foot. Powerful, mind-blowing stuff. Not possible without the big toe. And in Qigong, we've got this whole, Taoist walking. And the critical part of that is the big toe once again. It's like the walking meditations in Taoism emphasize this thing called the rolling step, where energy flows from the heel through the ball of the foot and exits through the big toe. This movement generates momentum and key circulation, reinforcing the idea that each step is an act of energy exchange between self and the universe, grounded through the foot. Some internal martial arts like Tai Chi and Kung Fu and what I studied, Aikido, trained practitioners to grip the ground with their big toe for enhanced balance, power, and chi flow. I learned the same thing, that you are pushing pressure onto the ground with your big toe to activate this whole system. Big toe is a big part of this. This rolling step that we had pictures of before here, where you start with the heel, stretch the plantar fascia, the spring that's in the bottom of your arch, that activates this first joint of the big toe down through the big toe, and then when you put pressure into the ground with the big toe, activates this, stabilizes this whole thing. and opens up the portal of entry at K1. Putting the toe into a curl down into the ground stabilizes the structure, pulls this tension open, and you can feel the K1 point opening. It's opening the door to that, to suck energy straight from the universe into your chi energy system. Just sort of, I don't know, amazing, mind-blowing. I started with the dream, my big toe. Who would ever suspect? I mean, really? I'm going on this journey of exploration. I'm just having my mind blowing, going, really? The big toe is bringing me down this path, this road? Holy moly, let's put my hat on and get my walking stick, because holy, never thought I was going to be going here. You know, it's like, just sort of wow. You know, it just keeps going. You know, I don't know. I mean, you know, we've got these systems of Jing and Qi and Chen, which is another like sort of big, sort of Taoist thing. You know, where the big toe is sort of instrumental in exchanging Qi energy to Shen energy. That sort of whole thing was part of a whole system of stabilizing the three primary energies. I don't know. I mean, it was like transforming Qi to Chen via the big toe grounding. There was a whole thing in Qigong and Tai Chi of taking the energies coming up through the foot and transforming it. And there's the Taoist walking, the rolling step that I talked about, where the heel spreads the fascia, tightens the connections with the big toe. The big toe pushes off and stretches the tendon up to the Achilles tendon, activating, you know, what the ancient Greeks called Mercury, which all had to do with this Achilles tendon. Mercury, the Achilles tendon, was his weak point. If there's a problem with the Achilles tendon, this mechanism doesn't work and the big toe is deactivated. And my connection of being able to open the K1 point is lost. It requires the huge tension of this giant tendon here, connected to the calf muscle, the gastrocnemius muscle, to activate this whole spring lever system, and then curling the toe and pushing off with the toe activates the entire system and opens the K1 point to pull Qi energy into the entire system. The rolling foot walk, the rolling step. There was another practice called the big toe grounding, where you curl and push the big toe into the ground. You know, so the big toe is not just a structural element for balance, it was a profound energy center in Taoist and Qigong traditions, serving as an anchor for Qi, a conductor of spiritual grounding and a regulator of internal energy flow. By consciously engaging the big toe in meditation, Qigong, the movement practices, you can cultivate a deeper connection between the body and spirit, harmonizing the material and etherical aspects of the world, grounding yourself into the energy of the universe, pulling it up into your body where it can be used if you know what to do with it. That was another practice called the rooting foot, where you stand with, no shoes and socks on and ground yourself out onto the ground, and you literally energetically root yourself down to the center of the earth. That energy is coming straight from the center of the earth where all the power is, right? This rotating magnetic giant plasma ball of iron rotating. And iron is the only thing in the periodic table with magnetic properties, and that's electromagnetism, generating a magnetic energy field around the planet that protects us from the sun's rays, the solar wind, and generates the ionosphere. I mean, all of that we're in this sea of electromagnetic fields generated by the planet as it orbits around the sun, and the sun orbits around the center of the galaxy, and the galaxy orbits around the center of a larger structure. This whole spirals within spirals, as we talked last time about the heart, spiral structure, toroid fields. It's all fractal geometries of that. And at the center of it, unbelievably, is the big toe as the evolutionary artifact that started this whole thing rolling. Without the big toe evolutionary change, none of this would have happened. We'd still be in the trees. So wake up to your feet and pay them some attention. They're special. Special, sort of mind-blowing, it's sort of astounding to me how all of it fits together. And there's something on sort of the bottom of your feet that you never sort of think of, that you never, put any measure with. But it's your connection with the universe all the time. I just say that you got to take your shoes and socks off more often and go outside, stick your feet in the grass. I think it's a profound thing that will change a lot of things in your life and change a whole energetic relationship of healing that I think needs to be done. And I'm the first one that's going to start doing this. Because this has taught me something too. It's like, oh my God, I need to do that. I need to go out. I need to take my shoes and socks off and walk around in the grass, stand there and do the rooting thing. Stand there and curl my big toe into the ground. Do the Tai Chi rolling walk. Every day becomes part of a grounding spirituality into the universe, a connection energetically that is way more powerful than what you suspect. And has way more implications in what happens to you as an experience, as a being in the universe, by elevating something that you never notice, your own feet, the lowliest part of you that is the direct connection with the universal energy source, the part you never think about. Just keep moving forward one day at a time. The view from the top is so worth the climb. Walk up those hills, push off with your feet, do the rolling walk, do it with no shoes on, climb to the mountaintop. The view is amazing. It is only when there is no goal and no rush that the human senses are fully open to receive the world. Alan Watts, yeah. If one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. Henry David Thoreau, for Christ's sake. Wow. Talk about somebody who walked a lot in nature. The 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step. I've mentioned this before in previous live streams that, you know, the 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step, but from a Zen standpoint, the foot never needs to move if the destination is here and now. The 1,000-mile journey begins here and ends here at the same time, outside of time. That I choose to take my spirit, my consciousness, from a region of the universe that is outside of time, in an ever-present moment, and birth myself into a physical body that is locked into time, so I can explore the sort of the limitless paths that I could take between one moment and the next, all outside of time. That the 1,000-mile journey will take me on many paths and to meet many people and have many experiences in which my spirit can evolve and mature and learn more about the reality that I'm in. But in all of the years that you spend doing that, and all of the people that you meet, and all the children you may have, and all the grandchildren that you may have, and all the world situations that are presented to you, all happens in the blink of an eye, and you realize that your foot never moved. That it all happened between one blinking moment and the next outside of time. Each step is an eternity. Consciousness at the bottom of your foot, connecting with the universe and allowing it to flow in you and through you, and as you walk the biggest path that you could possibly imagine to walk, towards the true meaning of why you're here, what your soul is all about, your connection with the universe. It's not a place out there, it's a place in there. The new magnificent sanctity of your own feet, touching directly the universe. As you walk your path, but walk it consciously, that each step you've arrived. And that brings us to ourselves here, where that idea would be profound, to have a circle of people who are all connected together spiritually, holding hands with no shoes and socks off on the ground, doing this exercise together, where you have more power now. This whole thing here, feet on the ground, would be even more powerful. And that's the image that we could use today. When we put our headphones on, that imagine ourselves as this giant group around the world, all together physically holding hands with our bare feet on the ground, pulling all that universal energy right into our system and exploding those doors open, where there's power in numbers, that we can open bigger doors than any one person could open through the power of our connection together. So here we go, eyes closed. So, thank you all so much for being here with me and with everyone else. Even if it's snowing outside, run out, run back. So, I'll see you next time. I'm going to leave the chat open for a little bit. And afterwards, we can all sort of go to the Discord channel, and I'll talk to you all later. Thank you all very much.